12 weirdest horror movies that push the boundary of WTF. One of the biggest reasons that horror flicks have been so successful is because we all enjoy being scared whilst in the relative safety of the movie theaters or our rooms. Over time, the stories have matured and creepier concepts have evolved. Newer narratives have leaned towards the impossible, and the inherent weirdness in these plots has only spiced up things for the audiences. With advancements in lighting and technology, previously inaccessible areas have been opened up for the filmmakers to explore, and the fans haven't complained even when the boundaries of convention have been pushed. In this video, we have compiled a list of some of the weirdest horror flicks that we have come across. The following movies were drastically unique, each of them shattering the cinematic conventions of the time in which they were released. It is now time to dim the lights and note down these eerie tales and add them to your watch list for your next movie night. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Tokyo Gore Police, 2008. In futuristic Tokyo, the police force has been privatized. They are engaged in a deadly war with the race of supercriminals called the Engineers. The Engineers can turn an injured body part into a weapon and are fighting to destroy law and order. In the middle of all this chaos, a samurai assassin named Ruka is looking to avenge her father's murder. She is faced with hordes of evil mutant creatures as she seeks out the killer. If the story doesn't blow you away, the execution surely will. The title says it all, and this is as good a classic modern exploitation flick as you will find. It is easy for such movies to end up being repetitive, but this film scores with its endless inventiveness. The gore is extreme and at times ridiculous, with body parts being sliced and dismembered. Blood flows like a river and beheadings become the norm. The protagonist is a female policewoman with a physique to die for and an attitude to admire. In fact, most of the character designs are purposely over the top and perverted. The dystopian view of the future is absorbing, and the events in between all the action are almost as engaging. So why is this movie different from many others like it? While the level of gore, the satirical narrative, and the morbid scenes should be reason enough. If you are up for a Japanese-style splatter slasher, this movie fits the bill perfectly. The Lure, 2015. A family of musicians comes across two mermaids, Silver and Golden, and once they assure them they intend to cause no harm, the two are recruited into a cabaret. However, the sisters' differences are soon revealed. Golden simply wants to prey on the human population to satiate her bloodthirsty nature, while Silver falls in love with a handsome bassist Mietik. Golden is worried that her sister's romantic inclination will spoil their dream of building a new life together in America, and so the mermaids are headed for a final showdown. This is a relatively unknown and criminally underrated Polish film which mixes the genres of horror and fantasy drama. The movie is fairly erotic, and the two leading ladies absolutely steal the show with their alluring presence. Over 2,000 girls were tested for the roles, so it is no surprise that the ladies who were finally selected were simply perfect. The visual appeal is remarkable, and we're not just talking about the topless woman. The film has an enchanting, surreal color scheme that is almost poetic at times. Add this to the engaging musical score, and you will notice the movie's likeness to an opera. Underneath the simple storyline, the movie delves into deeper themes such as heartbreak and exploitation. For a low-budget film, the special effects are nothing to complain about. We were particularly impressed with The Mermaid's Tales. Overall, this film deserves special attention just for its reimagining of the classic mermaid stories that you may be familiar with.
Let me give you a hand, Bill.
Society, 1989. Bill Whitney lives with his high society family but grows increasingly suspicious about their activities. His parents are pretty indifferent towards him but are always splurging on his sister. He has some evidence to suggest that they might be a part of a murderous orgy, and their behavior is too strange for comfort. When Bill eventually discovers the horrific truth about his family, he is in for the shock of his life.
Get off here! Why? Why are you guys doing this to me, huh?
Don't be so paranoid.
Wait.
This Brian Usna movie is a cult classic and one of the most shocking things you will come across. The movie is essentially a social critique on the domination and exploitation perpetrated by the rich upper class on poorer sections of the society. However, Usna took the metaphor a bit too literally and put on a show that will leave you terrified. The narrative relies heavily on suspense, playing on the growing paranoia in the film. Eventually, it all boils down to a kind of surreal absurdity that you wouldn't imagine in your worst nightmares. Seldom has body horror been so disturbing, and the visions of contorted bodies and other strange occurrences will haunt you for a long time to come. The makeup by special effects wizard Screaming Mad George deserves a lot of praise, allowing for climactic moments involving mutilated body parts and bodily transformations. The use of latex and slime worked wonders for this movie in giving it the typical old school look. The film was a revelation in the world of body horror, and if this isn't pushing the boundaries, we don't know what is. Cemetery Man, 1994. For some strange reason, the dead are rising from their graves in a cemetery. These flesh-eating zombies are taken care of by Francesco, the cemetery custodian. However, he has grown tired of killing them all because they just keep reappearing. The politicians he complains to do not pay much attention to his problem, and the situation worsens when Francesco falls in love with a woman whose husband has recently passed. Their romance is tragically interrupted by the vicious zombies, and the chaotic situation leaves Francesco in quite a jam. If you watch this movie, you will realize why people hail the Italian director Michele Soavi as one of the most imaginative creators in the country. This enjoyable zombie comedy delivers a smashing hit with a hilarious story of a cemetery caretaker who has to deal with the dead rising from their graves. It is easy to confuse such an effort with more trashy and meaningless narratives, but this movie is unique because of the dark humor and weird characters that it introduces.
No, please don't. He's only eating.
Move aside.
Mind your business! I shall be eaten by—
Yes, in some ways, it's a schlocky zombie movie that panders to the gorehounds, but there's so much more to it than that. The thought-provoking materials combined with the aesthetics and a surprising amount of intellect to give something that will leave you thoroughly impressed. The unorthodox approach is commendable, and as the zombie effects become weirder by the minute, the levels of fun rise exponentially. The gory bits in the movie are purposely made to look absurd, and instead of being pretentious, the film thrives in its own artistic creativity, throwing in some entertaining exploitation carnage for good measure. If only modern horror films could recreate the magic scene here.
Now, will you just please step aside and let me go? Stop. Stop it. Stop it!
Creep, 2014. A struggling videographer, Aaron, gets an assignment in a remote location. His client, Joseph, claims to have a fatal brain tumor and expects to die before his pregnant wife delivers their baby. So he wants Aaron to film a video diary for the unborn child. What was supposed to be an emotional and creative project soon starts to turn weird. Joseph's behavior raises a few suspicions about his mental stability, and when Aaron realizes the extent of Joseph's problems, he returns home.
I need to get my car towed. And now I'm home.
However, he soon begins to receive strange items in the mail, and Aaron realizes that he is being stalked. The climax comprises a spine-chilling twist of events, which make this found footage-style movie a must-watch for all horror fans.
Hello?
It is all fun and games until a horror flick turns out to be pretty realistic, and everything that happens in this film could easily happen in real life. True to its title, this movie will creep you out with its classic combination of horror and drama. The narrative doesn't resort to gore even once, and yet the film proves to be more disturbing than some of its gory counterparts. There are some severe jump scares with precious comical elements that will help you calm your nerves in between. The director, Patrick Bryce, is definitely one to watch, and the performances by Bryce and Mark Duplass take the movie to a whole new level. Found footage style scenes work wonders for the story, and this film redefines the psychological horror as we know it. If the climax doesn't shock you, you are probably a robot. From Beyond, 1986. Dr. Pretorius has discovered the means to open a portal to a parallel universe by exploiting the pineal gland in the brain. However, something from the other world kills him, and Dr. Crawford is accused of the crime. The case is handled by Detective Bubba and a psychiatrist named Catherine, and together with Dr. Crawford, they discover that there is more to the other world than they had originally thought. Looking beyond our regular perceptible reality might just have some serious side effects. For those who have watched and loved Reanimator, a project worked on by director-producer duo of Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna, This will be an incredibly exciting prospect. The team doesn't disappoint here, coming together for a hysterically entertaining gooey exploitation flick adapted from a Lovecraft work. Yuzna and Gordon take one of his outrageous tales and turn it into a classic 80s B-movie the way that only they can. The casting of Jeffrey Combs and Scream Queen Barbara Crampton added to the camp feel of the movie, but what set it apart from the others is the brilliant design of the otherworldly creatures. From deadly flying eels to nasty slimy creatures, this movie is sure to drive you to the edge of insanity. The movie disturbs and amuses at the same time. We absolutely lost it when Dr. Crawford mutated into a bald, brain-eating zombie. If you fancy a wild joyride into the crazy world of Lovecraft, take it from us. There's nobody who does it better than these two. Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, 1977. If anything else can be possessed, why not a bed? This movie tells the story of a demon who fell in love with a woman. He conjured up a bed to make love to her, but she died during the act. In his sorrow, the demon's tears of blood make the bed come to life. Every 10 years, when the demon wakes up from his rest, the bed is gifted with the magical power to consume humans. The deadly pieces of furniture changes hands from one owner to another, but the fate for the unfortunate folks using it remains the same. This description should be enough of a hint for you to know whether or not you will like this film. Those who are willing to try something new can definitely opt in for a film that looks like it is from another universe. There are several things in this movie that defy conventions, and you should be willing to accept them. The dialogue, for example, is like no other, and the characters are often seen communicating telepathically with each other. There are some weird scenes, such as when the bed snores or laughs, or it makes noises that the characters cannot hear. Despite being a proper B-movie, it is certainly more artistic than exploitative, and we loved how the tone of the story shifted from horror to fairy tale. Imagine the strangest bedtime story ever. This film might just be a visual representation of what you're imagining. Bad Milo, 2013. Duncan is just another average guy who has a regular job in an office. He begins to experience strange stomach aches whenever he is stressed. When he tries to suppress this stress, he discovers that it actually manifests as a demon, which comes out of his body through his butt. This demon usually lives in his intestines and tries to take care of all Duncan's troubles. But when the demon threatens his wife, it becomes a real problem for Duncan. If all morals could be introduced using such funny stories, learning them would be awesome. The film actually pushes a strong message on the importance of letting out your inner demons and not allowing stress to get the better of you. There are some adorable moments in this movie, and the childish humor is often pretty funny. Milo is a cute little demon, and by the time the movie ends, you may wish you had one of your own. No. The gory bits are a bit cheesy and often too extreme, but we didn't mind. Practical effects are used rather than CGI, making the film feel like a nostalgic throwback to the 80s, a time of brilliant creatures like the Critters and Gremlins. Overall, this movie is in a different league altogether. If you haven't watched it already, do give it a try. The Happiness of Katkuris, 2001. The Katkuris are a family of failures who buy a large old house near Mount Fuji. They decide to try their luck with a bed and breakfast and convert their property into an inn. However, visitors are rare, and worse still, when they do come to stay, they end up dead under mysterious circumstances. Some commit suicide, some die by accident, and others are simply murdered. To avoid trouble, the Katkuris simply bury the bodies in their backyard, but soon the bodies pile up as no guest in their inn ever makes it to the morning and lives. Buried under their own lies and fear, the family's paranoia builds when the divorced daughter of the clan falls in love with a US naval officer and he starts to unravel the mysteries of the house. The findings will leave you baffled. This Japanese film is a unique combination of horror, comedy, and musical drama that we strongly recommend to anyone with a good sense of humor. This is one of the weirdest movies you will come across, and it manages to hold your attention without resorting to disturbing moments of extreme violence. The first few minutes of this movie play out in claymation, and you must watch it with an open mind. The songs are meant to be silly and dramatic, but they are simply hilarious. At the risk of revealing spoilers, there are zombies in this film as well. The goofy and creepy tale will captivate you, and for us, this is filmmaking at its best. Have you ever imagined a death musical? Well, here's one, and considering all the entertaining elements the film has to offer, we had to make it a part of our list. Killer Condom, 1996. This film has the most bizarre story you will ever hear. It starts with a lecherous professor taking one of his students to a motel where he is killed by a deadly, sharp-toothed condom. The case is assigned to a gay detective named Luigi Macaroni, and when he visits the same motel to fool around with a guy named Billy, they almost fall prey to the vicious condom too. The superiors in the police department are starting to doubt Luigi, and he must act fast to solve the mystery of these murderous condoms. Killer Condom is a trashy masterpiece based on a German cartoon, and to give you a rough idea of the vibe, we'll explain that this film was made by Trauma Films. However, unlike most of their other works, this feature did not lack great content despite the absurd plot. The cast was comprised of famous German actors, and it is good to see such celebrities embrace such roles. Hollywood stars wouldn't imagine being a part of this kind of film in their wildest dreams. The tongue-in-cheek work is rather straightforward, but still manages to deal with everything from religious maniacs to mad scientists. The protagonist is openly gay and roams the streets of New York as a conventional detective. The special effects look like they cost less than a McDonald's burger, but that kind of adds to the fun. We won't spoil things for you, but the origin of the Killer Condom will leave you in fits of laughter. The clever parody broke the shackles tying down traditional horror B movies, and you simply have to watch it to appreciate the excellence.
For the last time. Now give me some sugar, baby.
The Ginger Dead Man, 2005. A psychotic killer is sentenced to death and sent to the electric chair after a young lady testifies against him. One night, when the girl is baking a gingerbread cookie, it somehow comes to life. The deceased killer's spirit is possessing it. It becomes a murderous gingerbread monster that is determined to get his revenge on the woman who caused his death. Will the young lady manage to survive the evil gingerbread? There is something about Charles Band as a director that makes you expect something special when you watch his films. He doesn't disappoint here with the ridiculous story of a gingerbread monster. Now, before you start bashing us, let us admit that this is no classic. If you're looking for a genre-defining classic, this isn't the film to watch. But who said that a trashy movie could not be fun? Each moment of this film twists the plot in a new direction, and the cheap special effects wonderfully brings it all to life. We were in love with the entertaining climax that somehow left room for a remake. Gary Busey gave an impressive performance despite the challenging role, and whilst this might not be the greatest project he has ever been a part of, he certainly poured his heart out for the film. This movie definitely pushed the boundaries of trashy filmmaking, and it was a treat for B-movie lovers. We loved watching an adorable evil gingerbread on a rampage, and if that's not your cup of tea, there are always films like The Conjuring to entertain you. Mystics in Bali, 1981. While researching for a book, a woman becomes interested in a black magic cult based in Bali. She heads to the island and meets a witch who promises to train her in the dark arts. However, the witch harbors evil intentions, and in an attempt to increase her powers, she turns the woman into a vampire. Her internal organs hang from her neck, and her dreams of mastering the mystic arts are shattered. Is there a way out of this horrific situation? This is one of those movies that you have to see to believe. This was a step in a new direction for Indonesian cinema because this time they focused on all-out horror flicks and didn't indulge in comedy and violence. They tried to cater to the Western audience, and the ploy worked. It is unfortunate that they did not have the budget for such an extravaganza, and the special effects look pretty comical at times. For instance, when the woman's head leaves her body and she becomes a flying head with the entrails still connected, it looks just like a defective prop. The adventurous narrative left us impressed, and while there are cheesy bits in the story, the overall package is quite interesting. This gruesome Indonesian horror flick deserves a shout out for daring to differ, and it is a movie that you could watch multiple times without getting bored. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Come on.